to the Wauconda American Legion. I'm the commander, Ryan Jacobson. A couple of years ago, the past mayor, Lincoln Knight, came up to me and wanted to do some kind of Wauconda honors, Wauconda Heroes banners on Main Street. And obviously we were all over it. It was a fantastic idea. Obviously we didn't have anything because of COVID last year. So this year we're pleased that we can do this. So I welcome everybody, and we're going to read. The way this is going to work, I think we have almost every banner with the exception of maybe 3 have some type of representation here today, which is awesome. We're going to read off their bios. All these veterans are fully worthy. You're going to really enjoy the bios, and then we'll present the banner to the families. Yeah, let's start off doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Matt Madsen, my senior vice, is going to be doing the reading. The first one is actually from last year. It's our first commander, Robert Peterson.
First Lieutenant Robert Bob Peterson was born in Washburn, Wisconsin on January 16, 1919. Bob and his family lived in Ely, Minnesota until 1941, when Bob moved to Wauconda to work in a tree nursery in Palatine. He met Jacqueline Ross when she came to a bridal shower at the house in Wauconda where Bob was renting a room. They were married on October 8, 1943 at the Wauconda Federated Church. Bob enlisted in the Army Air Corps in February of 1942 at Fort Sheridan. Jacqueline told Bob he could do any job in the service except be a pilot. Of course, Bob went into pilot training and became a B-25 Mitchell bomber pilot. He received his silver wings in Yuma, Arizona on July 28, 1943. He completed his overseas training in Greenville, South Carolina. In Savannah, Georgia, Bob awaited his orders as the pilot for where he would fly his B-25. Once the crew received orders to leave Savannah, they could not open the envelope telling them the destination and route they would fly until they were out over the Atlantic Ocean. Bob and his original crew flew to India, and the plane was left in Bangalore to have transition work done to add guns and other equipment to the plane. When Bob and his crew arrived in Yankai, China, the crew was separated into different crews. Of the 6 original crew members that flew over to China with Bob, 2 gunners were shot down and lost on their first mission. The 3rd gunner was shot down and lost on his second mission. Bob's original bombardier and navigator was shot down and lost in his last mission before he was scheduled to come home. Bob and his co-pilot were the only 2 members of the original crew to return home safely. The first mission Bob flew was April 8, 1944 from Yankai, China to Backley Bay on Hainan Island in the Tonkin Gulf, in which they were bombing Japanese shipping. Bob flew daytime and nighttime missions to bomb ships, railroad bridges, trains, highways, and the Canton Airport. He flew many places, including Luchao-Nanning and over the hump of the very high mountains from India and Burma to his home, the home base of Yankai, China. He was part of the 14th Air Force Flying Tigers in the 491st Squadron and the 341st Bomber Group. He flew 45 missions and was awarded the Air Medal and Distinguished Flying Cross. He received his honorable discharge on August 17, 1945. After returning to Wauconda, Bob was one of the veterans who was instrumental in organizing Legion Post 911. He was installed as the first commander of the new organization on November 15, 1945. He opened Lake Bluff Hardware in 1950 with his mother-in-law, Celeste Ross. He was a wonderful father to his children and grandchildren. He passed away on June 1st, 2013. Our Wauconda American Legion Post 911's first commander. If we have any members, I understand there's a grandson in the audience. If you could please come up and accept the banner.
Welcome, everyone. For those that don't know, I am Mayor Jeff Sodi. I'm honored to be here to be part of this presentation. On behalf of the village and the village board, we thank all of you for your service. I'll be reading for Kenneth A. Bomer, born June 28, 1916, in Wauconda. Kenneth was a World War II Army veteran. After being discharged in 1946, came to work with his dad, Arthur, at Brown and Bomer Chevrolet in Wauconda. Kenneth became a partner with his dad at Bomer Chevrolet in 1956, and after his father's passing, he became the owner. Kenneth was a Village of Wauconda trustee for 18 years, a charter member of the Wauconda Chamber of Commerce, one of the founders of the Wauconda Township Pool Foundation, an active member of the Wauconda Township Historical Society, and a member of the Federated Church of Wauconda. Accepting in honor of Ken Bomer, his son Steve Bomer. We're going to tag Kruger.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, so this next banner presentation will be for Roy Kruger. The banner was sponsored by his children. And now presented to David Kruger. Deborah Stegman, and Barbara DeSort. Born May 28, 1916, to Henry and Elise Kruger, he had two brothers, Maurice and Kenneth. Kenneth was killed in the Battle of the Bulge. Roy was raised in Wauconda and attended local schools through his junior year of high school. Worked as a carpenter until he enlisted in the Army at the age of 25 years old. Inducted into the Army United States on June 20th, 1941. Served in Company B, 6th Ranger Battalion in the Southwest Pacific and Philippine Islands for 32 months. Led a reconnaissance patrol deep into enemy territory on Luzon. Served many months in New Guinea and took part in the invasion of Leyte Gulf and then Leyte Island. Served from 1941 to 1945. Separation from services as a first lieutenant. He received the Combat Infantry Badge, American Defense Ribbon, Philippine Liberation Ribbon, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. Roy purchased Wauconda Ice and Fuel in 1946. He was a volunteer coach for his son David's Little League team for 2 years, and joined the Wauconda Fire Department as a volunteer fireman in October 1945. Roy became fire chief in April of 1965 until 1967. Total years on the department, 28 and a half. Elected village trustee from 1951 to 1971. And he was a member of the American Legion Wauconda Post 911 for 50 years. Roy was always civic-minded when it came to the town of Wauconda. Roy and Jean, his wife, were raised and lived in Wauconda their entire lives and were married for 50 years. Raised 3 children, David Kruger, Deborah Stegman, Barbara DeSort, and was a proud grandfather of 3, Ron and Jeff Kruger, and Ashley DeSort. Roy passed on Veterans Day, November 11, 1995. If we could have David, Deborah, and Barbara.
For Philip R. Brokey. The Riley family sponsored this. Phil served near the end of World War I with the American Expeditionary Force, the AEF, in Siberia. American troops had been sent to Russia by President Wilson as a part of an effort to protect American interests in the midst of the Civil War during the Bolshevik Revolution. Phil is more well known in Wauconda as the founder of Phil's Beach in 1926. He also served as a village trustee and as the longtime chief of the Wauconda Volunteer Fire Department. I don't believe anybody's here to accept for Phil.
All right, the next banner to be presented, Eddie Weiser from World War II, sponsored by Carol Baisley. Ed was born in Dixon, Illinois, and raised in Volo. He was one of 12 children growing up on their farm. He went in the United States Army in 1941. He was a sergeant in the infantry and served in the Philippines and Guadalcanal. During this time, he got malaria and was hospitalized. His oldest sister was a captain in the Army as a nurse. She was stationed in Guadalcanal, and one day, as she was checking the incoming patients, she saw Ed's name. He always said if it was not for taking care of him, he probably would have not lived. At some point, they sent him home, and he was admitted to the Army Hospital in Camp Croft, South Carolina in 1944. He received an honorable medical discharge in 1945. When he returned home, he married Roberta Ettinger, raised a family, and was a Wauconda police officer. He also was one of the several men who started American Legion Post 911. He also helped start the voluntary Wauconda Fire Department. On January 29, 1964, at the age of 46, he died of a heart attack. The autopsy showed that the malaria played a pivotal part in his early death. The recipient is Carol Baisley.
The next honors banner is Alfred Guy August. USMC Corporal Alfred G. August served during World War II. Shortly after his company's first attack at the Bataan Peninsula, Alfred was captured by Japanese soldiers. He broke free and swam 12 miles to the island of Kruger, only to be buried alive by a bombing attack. Fellow Marines spent 8 hours digging him out. Following the surrender of Kruger, Corporal August was transferred to another camp where, although he had no medical training, Alfred served as a doctor for an estimated 2,900 fellow prisoners. His medical equipment was a first aid kit, a GI sewing kit, razor blades, alcohol, a piece of candle, and iodine. Alfred would go on to suffer unimaginable torture and horrific living conditions for 3 more years. It wasn't until after the bombing of Hiroshima that his imprisonment camp was liberated and he returned to the United States in 1945. Alfred G. August would go on to marry another Wauconda resident, Colette Ann Cobb. Both families were longtime residents of Wauconda. Accepting in honor of Alfred, Michael Jungles.
This next banner is for Elaine Baisley, sponsored by the Baisley family. Lane and John, sponsored by the Baisley family and the Standers Landscaping. Lane was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on July 15, 1946, to Roland and Marge Basin. Where he was a few months old, they moved back to Wauconda. He is the oldest of 5 children. He was raised in Wauconda and graduated from Wauconda High School in 1964. Following high school, he went to work for IDOT as an engineer technician. In March of 1966, he enlisted into the United States Army and did basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. On June 4th, 1966, between basic and AIT, he married Carol Weiser. They have one child and one grandchild. He spent the next year at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and first in his advanced individual training as a combat engineer, and then as a combat engineer instructor. In June of 1967, he was sent to Vietnam and stationed in Canaan and Da Nang. Fortunately, at his 18th Combat Engineers Brigade headquarters, they recognized his work at IDOT. He was able to utilize his IDOT training and worked on the road and bridge construction and one airfield in Da Nang for the remainder of his tour. In June of 1968, he returned to Fort Leonard Wood and was honorably discharged in March of 1969. After his discharge, he went back to work for 6 years at IDOT and has now spent the last 47 years at civil engineering firm building roads and bridges. He is currently observing construction of the City of Woodstock's 2021 street improvements. John Baisley. John was born on March 8, 1948 in Woodstock and raised in Wauconda, Illinois. John was drafted into the U.S. Army in March 1968. He completed boot camp at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and by August 1968, he had become a combat engineer and was a demolition expert. He served in the jungles of Vietnam. John still has a passion for blowing shit up today. A few years after returning home, John married Roseanne Picorni in 1975, and on January 22nd, 1976, his son Joel was born. Joel was a bicentennial baby. Some of John's favorite pastimes are Sunday breakfast with his son, where they would travel from Wauconda up to Madison, Wisconsin in search of new places to have breakfast, going to BMX races where Joel raced, and driving Joel through snowstorms to get his ski skills. John loved camping, fishing, and campfires, and his family at his grandmother's home in Langley, Wisconsin. On August 12th, 2005, John was gifted with his granddaughter, Amelia, and Amelia is the apple of John's eye. Amelia was placed at the #1 BMX champion racer in Wisconsin in 2017 and 2019. John resides in Wauconda, enjoys his family, and a lifetime passion for cars. So if we could have the Baisley family come up.
The next honors banner, Robert Cook. Robert Cook grew up in Wauconda, joining the United States Marine Corps in 1975, serving for 10 years. During that time, he was part of the Force Reconnaissance, one of the USMC Special Operations Forces, supplying military intelligence to the Marine Air Ground Task Force. His military service, Robert served 8 years on the Wauconda Park District Board, joined the Wauconda Moose Lodge, number 1969, and American Legion Post 911. He is a past master of the Masonic Lodge, number 298, president of the Wauconda Republican Club, Rotary and Lions member. Accepting for Robert Cook, his son, Brendan Cook.
This next banner is for Roland Basin, also World War II. Raleigh was born in Langley, Wisconsin on April 17, 1918, to Arthur and Lottie Baisley. He was raised on their farm along with brother Hugh and sisters Lucille and Fern. He was an avid trout fisherman, and John and Elaine look forward every year to going to Grant Lottie's log cabin home in Langley for the opening of trout season. He went to the United States Army Air Corps in January of 1942. He served in the 8th Air Force, 328 Bomb Squad, 33 Bomb Group, as a member of the B-24 crew. He was a very proud member of, he was very proud of his B-24, and he served in European, African, and Middle Eastern theaters and was promoted to the rank of tech sergeant. At some point in time, he had a leg injury and was hospitalized in Egypt. When he returned home, he married Marjorie Jean Knigge in June of 1946 and raised 5 children: Lane, John, Lynn, Cynthia, and Brett. He worked mostly as a mechanic, with stints as a truck driver and concrete plant superintendent. He was one of the several men who helped start American Legion Post 911 and was proud to have been a past commander. He fought a long battle with emphysema and died July 3rd, 1989. If we could have the Baisley family return one more time.
Next honors banner, Donald Ekman. Donald Ekman, who goes by Don, was also a longtime resident of Wauconda. Don served in the U.S. Army as a medic during the Cuban Missile Crisis and Bay of Pigs invasion. Don was also a very involved member of the Wauconda community when he returned to Wauconda. He was part of the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Service before the fire district was created. He was a member of the American Legion Post 911, past president of the Wauconda Bowling League, and very involved in the Wauconda JC's program. Don still lives in Wauconda and is a member of the Wauconda Moose Lodge 1969. 3 years ago, Don was a recipient of the Unsung Hero Award, a rare honor by the Wauconda Moose Lodge Board. Don?
This next banner for the Wauconda Honors is for Edward Geary. And we'd like to have Bill Geary, past commander of Post 911 and current adjutant, come up and read the bio if we could.
Thank you. Ed Geary was my father. He and my mother Rachel had 3 sons, Bill, Dennis, and Brian. Good afternoon, I'm Bill Geary. My dad Ed, his father Bill, his grandfather Tom, and his great-grandfather Bernard all lived in Lake County. The earlier Gearys were in Fremont Township, but my dad and his dad lived right here in Wauconda. Dad went into the Army in 1943 and was married to my mom in April of that year. He never spoke much about his service. We know he served in England and France because he complained that English beer was warm and Paris streets were filthy. Late in his life, he was interviewed by a local newspaper, and he told them more than we ever knew. Turns out he was an ambulance driver in the Army. We knew that part. What he never mentioned was he was a part of the Normandy Beach invasion. And he wasn't there on D-Day, but he landed with his ambulance 3 days later. I can only imagine what that beach looked like after 3 days of battle. His job was to see if there were any survivors. If so, he and the medics would help them. When there were no survivors to help, his job was to take the bodies to be buried. It had to be a gruesome job, and we understood why he never spoke about it. My dad, Ed Geary, died 13 years ago at Good Shepherd Hospital. He would have been 99 years old now, and his 100th birthday would have been February 28th next year. He was a good man. He worked hard all his life. He retired with a pension from International Harvester, which had a big plant in Libertyville years ago. After he retired, he worked at Blackburn and Broughton Hardware, which was down on Main Street. The building is still there. I forget the name of the antique store. Somebody in here knows. Whippletree, yeah. And then he worked at Island Lake Hardware until he was in his 80s. He was a charter member. We've heard today that several of these other recipients were people who started the American Legion here in Wauconda, and that's what Dad was, a charter member who helped start this American Legion post. And he is a large part of why I have been an active member here for many years. There's a lot more to tell about Dad and his family, but I'll leave it there, and my brother Brian and I will accept his banner. Yes.
Next honors banner, Donald Kutnak. Donald Kutnak, also known as Don, is a longtime resident of Wauconda. He served in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War as an airman second class. Don is known around town for many things, including working for Berger Excavation for many years, but most notably for his involvement with the 9/11 and Veterans Memorial at Memorial Park. He played a key role in designing the 9/11 Memorial, coordinating contractors, and acquiring the beam from the 91st floor of the World Trade Center in New York. Don is a current member of the Wauconda Moose Lodge. He's a past governor of the Wauconda Moose Lodge, past commander of the American Legion Post 911, and a staunch supporter of the St. Baldrick's event, especially Team Emma and Team Elliott. He also was a past president of the Wauconda Chamber of Commerce. Don?
All right, Don. The next honors banner is for Leo DeVore. He participated in D-Day in the original invasion of Germany and 56-year post member. Leo was born in Freeland, Wisconsin to a farming family. His dad died when Leo was quite young, and his mother later remarried to a Yancey Dykstra. His future wife, Sadie, was also from Freeland. Leo went to Portage Prairie School, which is now part of the museum in Partyville, Wisconsin. Leo and Sadie married in 1939. He came to Wauconda that year to work in the cement business with Sam Baer and Peter Science. Other than the 2 years 1.5 years overseas in the Army, they lived in various houses around Wauconda and Island Lake. Leo never really talked about his service in the Army, but would just reminisce about friends he made and still kept in contact with some for years. He held a variety of jobs: construction, hauling fuel oil, and working at Perkins Lumberyard. Finally started his own ready-mix business to keep him occupied in retirement. Leo had one son, Larry, who had 3 grandchildren, Greg, Paul, and Curtis. Larry and his wife, Laurel, ran the ready-mix business with Leo and took it over when he retired again, until ill health forced the closure. People here to accept: Laurel DeBoer, the daughter-in-law, Greg DeBoer, grandson from Wisconsin, and Marion Alsam, sister.
The next honors banner, Sergeant Major Melissa Hawkins. Sergeant Major Melissa Hawkins enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1999 and subsequently graduated from the Marine Corps Recruit Department, Parris Island, South Carolina. Over the course of her career, Sergeant Major Hawkins served in various locations and units across the United States, holding several key billets within and outside her military occupational specialty. Her deployments included rotations during Operation Iraq Freedom. Sergeant Major Hawkins is currently assigned as a Battalion Sergeant Major of the 4th Combat Engineer Battalion, 4th Marine Division, and is a Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Human Performance Branch. Her personal decorations include the Navy and Marine Corps Combination Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, and various other service and campaign medals. Sergeant Major Melissa Hawkins.
The next Wauconda honors banner is for Norman Pratt, a Civil War Union soldier. Born in 1841 in Vermont, his family emigrated to Wauconda. Norman was captured by the enemy and imprisoned at Millen and Andersonville prisons during the U.S. Civil War. Norman served in Company B, 96th Illinois Infantry, and was also in the Signal Corps. Buried in Wauconda Cemetery, Norman died in 1884 of injuries he had sustained in the years earlier during the Civil War. That's all.
That will conclude our presentation today. I want to thank everybody for coming and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Nice.